You're muted, Glenn.
Glenn Carlson,
Here.
Larry Derrigan,
Here.
Esme Martinson,
Here.
Magdalene Dale.
Here.
All board members are present. Thank you. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I say it so fast.
Thank you. I'm looking for a confirmation of our meeting posting.
I can confirm that tonight's meeting was posted at all designated locations.
Thank you very much, Linda. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda, board.
Motion to
Approve.
We have a
Second.
motion by Debbie and a second by Larry. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Next on our agenda, we have public comments. If there's anybody on the virtual line who would like to give public comment, please turn your camera on and give us a wave to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little public comment.
All right, Eric.
Let me bring it up. So I sent a letter to the school board. I got a little echo here. We do something about the echo? There we go. All right. Members of the Bayfield administration and school board, as we come to the 1-year anniversary of schools in Wisconsin being closed by our governor due to the upcoming coronavirus pandemic, I would like to address you for a matter of concern of our local school union. But first, I would like to say a few words on the experience of this past year. Wow, what the hell was that? Over the past year, we, as a school district, like so many others in our state and our country, and indeed all over the world, were thrown into a swirling maelstrom of chaos, uncertainty, and fear. Schools were closed and we were left to figure out the unfamiliar virtual world of education. To these ends, I would like to recognize our IT administrator, Chris Plansky, who stepped to the looming crisis and provided our students with laptops and handled so many problems that ensued thereafter. Of course, we should recognize our school nurse, Jackie Noah, who transformed from fixing boo-boos and runny noses to helping to orchestrate a response to a deadly virus. Thanks to Karen Boutan and our kitchen staff who provided the children of our community with boxes of breakfast and lunches, and of course, our custodial staff led by our beloved Dave Weber, who played an essential role in helping distribute the goods and keeping our school safe and clean. I hope he is enjoying his retirement. I think he would be pleased with his replacement of Joe Shulman, who has done a tremendous job. A big thank you to the COVID response team made up of our administrators, committees, teachers, and staff members, and of course, Nick Sawyer. I believe that you have made our school district the safest in the state and a model for health and wellness. Chimagwich to our team of administrators, especially Beth Papp, who stepped into her role as interim administrator during the peak of the pandemic. A big thank you to the members of the school board who helped us navigate through this turbulent seas of change. To our fellow teachers who had stepped up and figure out ways of how to teach virtually amidst all the pandemic pandemonium, and a very, very big heartfelt thank you. I'm amazed at all of you. I know I have personally struggled with these changes, and I'm sure you have as well. And finally, we cannot forget the parents and the students of which we serve who had to make major adjustments in their own lives to accommodate the school being closed and to help facilitate learning. I know that everyone has struggled over this past year with so many issues, and I just wanted to acknowledge everyone who is part of the community. Henry David Thoreau once said that the government is best which governs least. As the BEA president this past year, I have tried to keep that in mind. Not that I am governing anything really, but I do believe that the role of the union is to stay out of the way and let the administration and the school board do their jobs. This year has been, I'm sure you are aware, a most extraordinary year in which many issues and concerns have been brought up and discussed in our meetings, which have been more numerous than other years. One of the main issues and concerns for the majority of our members are the school district's hiring policies. We believe having fair, equitable, and transparent hiring policies that are clearly communicated and accessible are very important for our district's employees and our union members. We certainly would like to be involved in helping shape this policy. As time goes on, there will be new employees, administrators, and school board members coming into our district. And we feel that having a standard hiring policy that everyone knows and that the district follows will be beneficial for everyone and will help eliminate problems in the future. In closing, I would like to thank Deb Knopf, Glenn Carlson, and Larry Derrigan for the years of dedication and hard work for our school district. Thank you for making a difference in our community. It has been an honor. Thank you. Sincerely, Eric Iverson.
Wow, thank you, Eric, for that. I think we all concur with the gratitude you've shared with all of those different groups of people. Stacy, your camera's on. Would you care to address the board?
Sorry, no.
We saw you walk all over your house. Anybody else on the virtual line that would like to give public comment? Okay, Kathy, did you have something to share?
Thank you. Yes. Your agenda is really super long and I'm a little intimidated by that. So I'm going to be as quick as I can. I know that later this evening in closed session, the Wage Equity Committee will be making some recommendations, and
Kathy, you froze for me anyway.
Me too.
If you want to try shutting your camera off, Kathy, and just addressing
Yeah.
us like that, that's fine.
thank you. Sorry, I think my connection's pretty poor. I just want to say thanks to the board for listening to the Wage Equity Committee. I want to say thank you to Glenn and Randy and Rick. I've had some opportunity to work with them, and I know that they've taken this task very seriously, and that they're bringing forward some very important issues and concerns to you. And I also want to express that I feel very proud of our district for taking
We lost you again, Kathy.
Do you have me again?
We do.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll just say thanks for your hard work and commitment, and thank you to the board for considering their recommendations. I'm going to keep it that brief because my internet is so poor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Kathy. Is there anyone else on the virtual line who'd like to share in public comment? If not, we are moving on, folks. 1.7, we have approval of meeting minutes from a variety of meetings. 12/21. Does that say September 2nd?
Yes, some of these meetings minutes are quite old, so hopefully we can stay caught up and do them month to month, because some of these are way back in September. I think 2 meetings were in September. And anyway, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. I've seen no errors in them as I look through them, unless somebody else has.
I'll second that, but I'd like to see them come out monthly and be approved for the month prior.
We have a motion on the floor by Debbie and a second by Esme to approve the 5 sets of minutes that are being presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Next on our agenda, 2.1, we have an update from Red Cliff Boys and Girls Club. And I believe Paige is on the line, the club director.
Bonjour. My name is Paige Moylanen. I am the club director for the Red Cliff Boys and Girls Club. So I know some of you have been made aware that we are doing a partnership with the school in regards to catching up with the youth that have either become truant or really falling farther behind on their online classes, because not everyone can learn online. Oh, there's my PowerPoint. So I just kind of did a quick little PowerPoint, nothing too major or anything. Just kind of shows a little bit of photos of what the kids have been doing, some of their meals that we prepare for them on top of program info. Thank you, perfect. So this program started, we call it School Aid. It started in February 2nd. That's when it got finally the roll going. We run it from Monday to Thursday. Monday and Tuesday, we do work with the virtual kids that are virtual those days. And then we have a different group that comes in Wednesday, Thursday. They're usually in from that 9 to 12 o'clock time frame, but some of them do stay longer to catch up on overdue work. Again, we have 2 different groups. Those age groups are from 3rd grade to 12th grade. And this way, it really helps catch those kids that are either falling behind truancy-wise, just because they're having a little bit of issues trying to stay focused at home, or, you know, they're just starting to fall through the cracks in general. We do include breakfast along with an afternoon snack. You'll see some of the breakfast that we do provide. Currently, right now, we have a maximum of 20 youth that we can get, but we have 14 youth, kind of averaging between that 14 to 16 youth that we get currently. So in this photo, we have one of our Red Cliff officers, Officer Shane Moylanen, and our Native Connection Youth Engagement Coordinator, Steve Luther. We're offering homework help, math help. So here's that one. Another one, we're working on Spanish. So he's doing really well in his Spanish. He's actually been able to get caught up due to having this structure, this time frame of just being able to do work. So when they get breaks, they usually get brain breaks. So in this photo, our club activities coordinator, Abe Butterfield, he's playing charades with the kids. So this is kind of the brain break some of the kids like to enjoy. Other games they like to play is a game called Statue. That one, they absolutely love that game. And then we had Ed McTallica. He came up and he's been coming up every once in a while to make healthy meals with the kids. With this photo, we did a peanut butter banana roll up, and you can kind of cut it into sushi. Kids absolutely loved it. And then we give them a recipe too. So this is kind of during their break time. Again, we're working on those math skills. Anything that they have online, we try to get caught up with, and we make sure that whatever's due that day, that we work on it. And then that's when we try to catch up with some of the older homework that might be late or past due or anything or missing too. So again, during those healthy snacks, we're working with Ed in regards to making more snacks with the kids, some healthier snacks options that they can take home with the kids. So next slide, please. All right, this is one of our breakfasts. As we always like to call it, breakfast of champions every morning for the kids. They walk in. So Monday, Wednesday, they get the same breakfast. Tuesday, Thursday, they get the same breakfast. So that way our kids are still getting the same kind of nutrition. It's all homemade. So we'll make the eggs, we'll make the hash browns, we'll cook some bacon. Kids have become obsessed with our meals. And we had one kid that really was kind of a picky eater, and now he's eating everything we give him. And we joke around about, like, you were the one that told us that you didn't like it, now he's eating it. So it's really good to see kids like taste buds change and kind of expand too. All right, so this is currently running on 4 different staff here at Red Cliff. So we have Rob Goslin, he's our Red Cliff Tribal Youth Advocate. Rob will be done at the end of this month. We're very sad to see him go, but that's when the grant is up for his time frame. We have Steve Luther, he's the Red Cliff Native Connections Youth Engagement Coordinator. He comes up every day, Monday through Thursday. He's here all the time, so the kids really, really love working with him. He's been really great to work with. We're excited to keep that partnership. Abe Butterfield, he's our Red Cliff Boys and Girls Club Activities Coordinator. He plans a lot of the activities and plus plans a lot of the brain breaks or any of the other program stuff that we do with the kids. And then myself, I'm the Red Cliff Boys and Girls Club Director, and that's who we currently all have for staff-wise helping up, with our kids. So next slide, please. All right, again, another, honestly, I kind of envy our kids. They get a really cool breakfast, and I kind of feel sad a little bit that I don't get to enjoy these awesome breakfasts. So we made homemade pancakes, sausage, and we get apples. Snack-wise, too, we always provide cheese. We try to provide at least a minimum of 3 main food groups. So it'll be like a dairy, fruit, a carb, or like a protein, veggie, fruit, along with a juice that they take home when they leave. If kids end up staying later with us, that past that noon mark, that we do try, they'll either bring a lunch from home. If they don't, then we do provide them a lunch or a quick little meal at least, for something to tide them over until they get home. They still get the snack as they leave too, because we just want to all have a good time. We do a walking group. That is actually one of the activities we do every day, and that's one of the activities the kids really like doing every day. Is they're always like, can we go for a walk today? Because they know we'll go wherever our time frame allows us to go. So we are always enjoying the outside brisks of all the air. The big thing is keeping safe. So how we have it set up is all the desks are separated, 1 kid per desk. They're all 6 feet apart. If they get done eating lunch, they go wash their hands, and then they also use hand sanitizer again at their desks. So that way we do kind of keep them spread out. Most of the time we're supposed, we'll have them have masks on. She must have just got done eating, but at least she's hand sanitizing. That's a big one that we always have too, is even if you wash your hands, just hand sanitize again. We're trying to keep everybody healthy and keep everyone spread out too. So yeah, this is the game Statues. So literally they just hold still. Again, this is one of the kids' favorite games. They hold still, hold a frame, while somebody that's considered the night guard goes looking around to see if any of the statues move. When the night guard is not looking at you, they move around and they get really silly with it. They'll make some really crazy moves or something that just have a lot of fun with it. It's honestly one of the games that kids are just obsessed with, and we could play it for hours if we had the time frame to do it. Sometimes we have to call it because they get so used to wanting to play it longer that we take it for a 15-minute break, and then they want to play for another 15 minutes, and then it's almost at 30 minutes and we're past our break time. So it's one of their favorite games, and we always will continue to play for them. All right, so getting over those Monday blues. So one of our groups is Mondays, so sometimes they're a little bit squirrely on Mondays, which is totally fine. I mean, everyone has those Monday blues. And the student here, he's he's having some fun, playing with his hoodie, but at least he's still staying focused on his classwork too. He just got done with breakfast, so we're getting ready now to start our, assignments that they have to do for their virtual classrooms for that day. So. Again, so Steve is working with one of our youth right now. He needed a little bit of extra assistance on his writing and vocabulary. So we take the time we give the kids the space that they need. If they need us to assist them, they just raise their hand or they ask, hey, Paige, or hey, Steve, or hey, Abe, can you come help us? But otherwise, if they're, content on their own, we'll let them and give them that space. It's just, we'll check in with them here and there, just be like, hey, is everything good? Do you need anything? But I mean, it's pretty much their domain. They run it. We're just there to help them out and succeed the best way that they would need it for themselves. Next slide, please. Again, Abe's working with a math problem here and really trying to explain it. It gives the kids the opportunity to have at least that interaction sometimes that they don't get when they're on their virtual days, to have that one-on-one interaction to help explain Again, also focus on point, they're really, I think having this time frame and the distractions aren't not there, that they can really just focus in on classwork. That we've seen a lot of kids, I guess it's a double-edged sword, that we get to the point that kids get done really quick with what they're doing for that day, that then we got to start planning more and more activities for them. Because, now they're all caught up, and we're starting to slowly catch up with a lot of the kids that are, had past due homework, but now they're slowly actually starting to catch up so that their past homework is no longer there. Again, we get our daily steps in every day. That's one thing that the kids really, really like, is when we take a walk, get some fresh air, stuff like that. So I think that's the last slide. Yep. Okay. And then of course I always tell the kids this one too, make each day your masterpiece, because it's their day. I mean, it's not always going to be a great day. Sometimes we have those days, but it's still a masterpiece no matter what. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing up at the club, staying really busy with that. So I think the kids have been really, really enjoying that. And we've really enjoyed working with them and helping them succeed in an area that, wasn't really something we planned to do, but I think it's something that was needed at this time frame to help out the kids as much as we could, especially those that were falling behind or having truancy issues or something like that. Because if we can help the families out in that aspect, then we're still helping the kids out too.
Thanks a bunch, Paige.
Yeah, thank you, Paige, for sharing. That's great.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for allowing us to partnership with you guys and do something like this. It's been great.
Moving on, guys, we get a really full agenda. 2.2 is 2021 senior class trip. Alan Rogers,
Yeah.
are you presenting?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be much presentation. It's all in front of you. I tried to organize a trip that would be both indoors and out, so I took care of that aspect. Right now we're looking at about 20 people maximum on the trip, about 17 kids, about 3 adults. What else are you looking for from me? Anything from the board?
Oh, budget.
The budget for it is probably going to be right around what the money they have. So they have, I think, about $4,500 in their account, and it'll probably be just under that or just over that. A lot of the activities we're doing are individual activities. We can't just go to an amusement park all day. So they're all going to be, I think it's going to end up being about $105 a person per day for the all activities, for the tours, for the trampoline parks, for the golfing, things like that. If you put it all together, it'll be about that. Plus the room and board. Right now, I've got a really good deal from Lamers Buses that's going to save us about $1,000 over the other costs for some reason. So that's why we're hoping to get this approved tonight so I can try to book that bus. More?
So you're booking a travel coach bus?
Travel coach, yes. I looked at both coaches and school buses, and the cost for the coach from them surprised me was less than a school bus from them.
So, Ellen, do all
Yes.
the seniors get a chance to sign up for this, or is this how many signed up, or how many are graduating?
There are, this is probably, there's probably around 28, 27 seniors. A couple have already expressed just interest in going. Others have gotten various emails and Google Docs from me about the trip. And right now, this week is kind of the decision from the kids. So if they want to go, they have to put a down payment on the trip this week. So I'll know by the end of the week how many are going to go.
Okay.
Can you clarify a little bit? So you said that there's been 4,500 raised that goes
Yes.
to the trip, but then how much do they contribute? But then they have to make a down payment. So how much do they pay themselves?
Okay, their down payment is $50. And in the past, when we've done trips like this, they've gotten that money back on the trip itself. This time around, because of the additional cost for some things, it may end up having to be part of the actual student money in order to pay for everything. I won't know that until I book the hotels, because a lot of this I can't find the prices on until you guys approve it.
I motion to approve it with, I know you guys got the money, but I still would like to see a budget on it, just
Oh, that's no problem.
okay.
I'll second that.
I have comments. Sorry,
I
guys.
have discussion too. Go ahead, Magdalene.
You can go first if you want, Nicole.
I just want to have a little bit more reassurance that this is a safe item for our kids to take at this point. I don't know if it's gone to the mitigation committee or what our health partners are saying about sending our kids on a bus across the state. But we're not going to open school, or I'm like receiving really conflicting information, and maybe we should wait after the COVID response update to make a more informed decision, or I'd like to have some more information on the safety side of it. I get it's a fun thing and it's the senior trip, but there's more to it than that.
Do you have a plan B set up just in case, like, if this happens to fall through because of COVID or anything like that?
This trip is not until June 1st, June 1st
Mhm.
through 3rd. So I've got plenty of time to come up with a plan B. This is what the kids pretty much, we looked at 2 different locations, Minneapolis. I had them do a little research, and then they also looked at the Dells and Madison, and they chose what they did. We can always fall back and do the other, and organize something in the 3 months for that. Prices might be a little higher because as we get closer, it'll be more pricey, but that's always a possibility.
So my comments are this. When I look at your itinerary, I'm really glad to see a lot of outdoor events. And I think that I could today, if it was just me personally, like say yes on outdoor events. Where I start to feel uncomfortable is anything that's indoors, especially mixing with other communities that like we don't mix with. So I think I could be comfortable with everybody being on a bus the whole time, because we're in the same community and they're hanging out anyways. But if they're in a trampoline park and they're bouncing with like other kids and it's super packed, like those are the things that are not recommended. And so, you know, I think maybe just being really careful with your itinerary and looking at some of those areas and being able to give us a little bit more information. You know, if the escape room is just our group, then
It is.
feels comfortable, you know. But if it's not just our group, and even in like when you're dining, lots of times if you have a huge group, they want to give you your own room anyways, you know. So anytime where you can guarantee that we're going to be in our own room, that the students are going to be in their own room, that gives me a level of security. And I think that other board members would feel that way as well. So maybe just
Absolutely.
taking a little time to really look at the itinerary, maybe eliminate some things that just cannot, where you can't guarantee that level of protection. And if there's something that they really want, like tell us how you're doing it. Are they going to wear masks the whole time? Is it going to be a really limited amount of time? The recommendations are, if you're going to travel, you got to take the same precautions that you're taking if you're going to school, if you're going to Walmart. And so yes, it's June 1st and a lot of our community is going to be vaccinated, but this is not over. And I don't want to send the message that this is over. And I'm really cautious about the responsibility of approving something and sending students away and then having them bring this back to the community when we've been really safe. So I don't want to say no. I really don't. I really want this for the students. But I want to push them to be smart about their itinerary.
Okay, I'm going to address some of that. First off, the Urban Air Trampoline Park. There are 15 different activities there. They've already assured us that we'd have a group rate. We'd have a group, probably one or maybe two groups would be in there the whole night. And there's, like I said, 15 different things. There's laser tag, there's go-karts, trampolines. The kids haven't really expressed much interest in using. It's the periphery things there. The only other one that you mentioned, the escape room, we're doing it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I've arranged a private, no one will be there except for the workers and us. And there'll be 3 different escape rooms that we're going to be using. So we'll even be divided up into smaller groups for that. The only one that I have a slight concern is Mount Olympus. And the reason why we're going on June 1st is all their outdoor activities should be open on that day. And right now, Mount Olympus is deciding whether they're going to allow anyone who's not staying at the hotel to go into those facilities, or whether it's just going to be the hotel. So that might be off the table if they do not allow any outsiders, like individual groups, to come in for the day. I'm trying to think of anything else. Cave of the Mountains would be an individual tour just for our group. Famous Dave's, yes, they have a separate room for us if we want it. The zoo is totally outdoors. Vitense Mini Golf is an outdoor mini golf place that does have indoor components. In terms of masks, I'm planning on wearing them unless everything is cleared up by then, which I don't expect. So masks on the bus are mandatory. At the events, we'll see what happens, but if they're indoors for an event, they're going to be wearing. So the escape room, they'd be wearing masks. The only one I could think maybe not is Urban Air, but it depends how many people would be in there. But we, myself, Beth Kaczynski and Barb would be pretty much responsible if we saw a lot of people there. The mask would be entirely mandatory.
I'm wondering, Cindy, if you would accept an amendment to the motion to approve this with COVID protocol, safety protocol being followed, and a budget being presented, so we could put those stipulations in the budget, in the motion.
Yes, I make that motion then.
Does that seem reasonable, Magdalene? Does that seem, I think it makes sense to have.
I like that. I see Nick and Jackie both have hands raised to maybe chime in. And one other thing that I want to comment on, kind of as an aside, is that it sounds like there's some students who are showing disinterest. And I do feel like in this year, that disinterest could be because they're not comfortable doing a trip like this. And is there a way that they can get some of that money that's been raised towards a scholarship or something? You know, it just seems unfair that maybe some people won't participate because of COVID, but then can we still include them in some way? And the final thing on there actually is the one that actually is I have the hardest time with, is the class funded movie at Ashland Bay Cinema. That is like a lot of people in a closed space for a long time. That is unnecessary. But Ashwa Bay did like an outdoor movie. Can we work with Ashwa Bay and do like an outdoor movie where people are in their cars, and it does include more people? But yeah, that one was a big red flag to me.
That one, Magdalene, is only there in case they have any money left over. I am no longer expecting there to be money left over.
Nick, do you want to share something?
Yes, thank you. Mitigation's been talking about this here for a little bit. I really appreciate the breakdown and the hard work that went into this itinerary. We had real concerns with the water park on a lot of fronts, and the trampoline park. Those are two big flags. We have COVID protocols developed for transportation, things that could easily be modified for hotels and things like that. So we would just like to have a good integrated discussion about the COVID protocols, and that's already been brought up. I will say that we are expecting, we as in the health professionals, an uptick in cases here after spring break, and the county where all of this is taking place has been upgraded back to high COVID activity by the state of Wisconsin. So that's something to keep in mind now, and with an expected uptick, I'm not sure, even by June, where they're going to be sitting. So the COVID situation down there is a lot more grim than it is for us right now. Those are some points. I saw Jackie had her hand up, and I know she was going to speak to the water park, I believe. So I'll turn it over.
Yeah, I think all of my concerns, comments have already been addressed by Nick or Magdalene. I guess just the water park was a very big concern for me. I don't see how you do that socially distanced, or you can't wear a mask in there. And it sounds like it would be mixing with other communities. So that one's a big, huge red flag for me.
I just have a question or a suggestion. If we're uncomfortable with any of the events, but the kids really want to do this, obviously, can we just have the students quarantine for whatever amount of time would be necessary according to like the health department? I know it's at the end of the school years and you don't want them to miss school days, but is there some way to let them have their fun and then make them test negative before coming back? So then we don't have to worry about it so much, maybe.
They have graduation, practice and getting ready for graduation when they get back. So I'm not sure that
right
will work, but good idea.
Well, yeah. So you're talking about quarantining after they return, it sounds like, Esme.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the quarantine period is quite a bit shorter now. We have all these tests. Could the trip be done on a timeline that allows for them to go out and, have possible exposure, but then stay at home, test negative a certain amount of times or whatever, and come back? And I'm not looking at the schedule. I'm just thinking that that's kind of a, cover it all sort of solution.
So to comment on a couple of those points, I think what Debbie said, it's graduation real soon, like the day after or close to there when they get back. And
Correct.
then, so if that 2-week quarantine period, even if you tested negative on the day you got back, you still don't know that you're clear for that 14 days following. You could still test positive on day 5 or 6 or 7 after that trip too.
Well, we have a motion on the floor, and we should either vote and, start over if it's not acceptable, or see if we can state it again, Cindy, with the amendment that we added to ensure that COVID safety protocols are used in selecting activities, and that the board also wanted to see a budget. Do you want to try that and see where we go with it?
Sure. I don't think those items are needed in the motion though.
Yeah.
Just in discussion.
Yeah.
Just make sure the board gets a budget, a laid out budget, and then maybe some of the written COVID protocol that's going to be followed and any of the changes based on the conversations after this evening. Otherwise, I think that
Yep.
captures it.
Yep.
So
That'd
we
be
have
the
a motion on the floor by Cindy and a second by Debbie. Any more discussion, board?
No.
All those in favor, would you like a roll call vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, 2.3, I believe is just information only for us. Johnson O'Malley Parent Committee meeting minutes from January. Board reports, Buildings and Grounds Committee, 3.1. Do we know, did you guys meet, Esme?
We did meet, yeah. We had a good discussion about the LaPointe School. We just kind of all got on the same page, looked over a previously done report, basically breaking down the current condition, the major issues, and minor, although it's pretty extensive. It's an old building. It has not been maintained, and to bring it up to code would be expensive. It's basically the summary. So we're hoping to try to find out what it would cost, what the LaPointe School and community needs are for a new building, and what that new building would look like. So we're kind of wanting to move in that direction. The school just isn't gonna last long term, so it makes sense. The rec center, we met and talked about a previously done inspection on that building. Nothing on the inspection had been addressed. Maybe there was a couple items. I think there's a new furnace or something in there. We also talked about some repairs that they had done without board approval. So we're looking to have a discussion with the rec center board about how the rec center is managed, things like that.
Excuse me, Esme, but
yeah,
excuse me, Esme, but we're actually on their board agenda this coming Thursday.
good.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Yep. Sale of the school bus. Joel, do you want to address that one?
It's on the agenda later.
Yeah, we can address all that in I think it's 7.1 or something like that. So.
The multi-purpose storage classroom building, that seems like a pretty new item. I think, Joel, what are you looking for? Anything from the board on that?
That's on the agenda too.
That's on the agenda later as
Okay.
well.
Okay, perfect. And then the solar project is, I'm not looking at the agenda right now, so.
That's not on the agenda, and I've reached out to Bill Bailey, and we'll continue to discuss that as we move
Okay.
forward.
So that's about it.
Finance Committee?
We met last Thursday. Really, everything is pretty much on the agenda for later. We did have a good presentation from Rick Erickson on one of the issues that we're going to be talking about in executive session. And so with everybody's agreement, we've invited him to participate in that part of the beginning discussion anyhow on that topic in closed session. So when we get to that, whoever is orchestrating that, if they could make sure that Rick has access.
Thanks, Glenn. Policy Committee?
Policy Committee did meet. We discussed and went through a lot of the Neola policies and updated and stuff there later on the agenda. And we'll get into them then.
4.1 through 4.8 administrative reports. Any questions from the board?
No.
Oh, I said I made a motion to approve items 4.1 through 4.8.
Second.
In discussion though,
Oh, yeah, we can have discussion.
so my only request was in the Dean of Students Athletics report section. It was just really brief, and I'm curious as to what is actually going on. I wonder if they could attach a schedule, sports schedules, just some more information so we know what's being played and when. If nothing else, then at least we can tell other people to tune in via Zoom. But it's hard to know what's actually going on in that department.
I also had a comment on that report after our last big discussion about spectators and our special meeting and so on. I wanted to have a continued report about where we were at with spectators so the board is kept up to date monthly for sure.
Agreed.
Maybe we can ask Jeff to come in and give us an overview of all of it, the academic achievement and rigor of the numbers, where we're at with that, the effective communication, just an overall of everything.
Otherwise, I don't think I had any questions on any of them.
All right, board, we have a motion by Debbie and a second by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. 5.1, we have vouchers.
Oh, sorry. This is Glenn, and I lost my place in the agenda. Hold on. I move that we approve vouchers in the amount of $710,030.49.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Glenn and a second by Larry to approve the vouchers. Could we have a roll call, please, Linda?
Debbie Canal,
Oh, yes.
Cindy Garrity,
Yes.
Glenn Carlson,
Yes.
Nicole Boyd,
Yes.
Magdalene Dale,
Yes.
Esme Martinson,
Yes.
Larry Garrigan.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6.1 on our agenda is COVID response update.
So we're going to do this tonight with a couple different people speaking because COVID, as we know, is complex. There's a lot of moving parts. So Nick Sawyer is going to share some visuals along with the short report, and then Rick Erickson's going to offer some instruction-focused updates. And then I know that Mike Peterson and Shelley also want to give some information to the board from a principal perspective.
All right, Nick.
Okay, thank you. Do we have that PowerPoint or do I need to provide that? Oh, there it is. There it went.
I didn't get that. Is it on the agenda? Let me look.
It just popped up on the screen. The COVID update.
If Chris, can you give Nick the availability permission to share his screen, please?
Okay, I will try to share my screen. Okay.
We can
Okay,
see
can
it.
everybody see this?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. That worked, unlike earlier today. Okay, so it's been a year. It's amazing. Job well done all the way around. We are still here. So we're going to talk about a couple topics today. And it's just a quick update. This isn't very long. So vaccines, we have 112 staff signed up for vaccines, and those are in progress. I believe most, if not all, have already received their first dose. And then you'll see down there that by early April, early to mid-April, we're going to be at 2 doses for most of the staff. And that's the 2 doses plus the 2 weeks, which gets you to that max effectiveness of the vaccine. So our staff is in really good shape. That's exciting news. Protocols in place. So of course we require masks. We've done a huge investment in barriers, and those are being used in many different ways within the building, within the school. PPE. So at employee request, there's gowns, gloves, and face shields. You know, if you've been in the building, you've seen gloves on the wall all through the building, you know, ready access. And gowns and face shields are available, and they've been trained in their use and when they would be appropriate. We're doing the 6-foot social distancing as best as we can. We're trying to enforce that. I saw some really cool things when I was there when we first opened the doors to level 2, the zombie arms and whatnot. It was really creative thought. It was working really well. So, you know, this is a time for creativity and imagination. And we've, you know, the Bayfield staff has done a great job there. We do continuous cleaning throughout the building. That's hitting those touch points. We're shooting for every hour, and they're being done far less than that, maybe every 30 minutes. So That combined with that atmosphere at the bottom is a huge thing, and we have a really safe sanitary building. And then we have a heightened transportation sanitation plan. So all of that has come together to be extremely successful. Testing. So we are doing weekly staff testing. The school district is CLIA waived, which means they're a state testing facility and they can do rapid PCR and antigen testing within the building, which is really great. The antigen test is far less expensive and the state supplies those for us. That's great. If you have symptoms and you test negative on the antigen, the medical protocol is then you get a PCR test. Well, we can do that in the building as well. And Red Cliff is supplying those supplies for us. So Jackie and Angela have really stepped up and done a great job taking on this new responsibility. And then here at the bottom, you'll see a note that any staff that are COVID positive or deemed a close contact, if they have immediate family members or family members they visit frequently, the school district will provide their immediate family testing to be in compliance with public health. So if they would normally need to get tested and they can't get into a clinic or whatever, the school can take that on. It'll be a drive-through testing and it'll be by appointment only with Jackie. But we have that capability, we have those supplies, and we're offering that to the staff. So reaching back to last Thursday, just a few notes here. We had a COVID positive person in the building. It was caught on the weekly staff testing, which was good. That surveillance testing served its purpose. The COVID assistance team so the CAT from the school and Red Cliff Community Health sent their team down together. They partnered and worked through this process. And it is a process. And every time it's a process, it's going to be something new and something different and different dynamics. So they did a really great job partnering and getting through this, and really ultimately pretty quickly. What we got out of it was 68, well, it was actually 67 close contacts. So we had 1 positive staff and 3 close contacts that were quarantined, and then 64 students were identified as close contacts and were quarantined. So that's a total of 68 people out of the building. Red Cliff Community Health came down and took the lead on identifying who qualified as a close contact and what protocol should be. And I personally deem them, no bias here, but they trained me, and I personally deem them the local experts on contact tracing. So we went with their lead, and that's how we got to identify the close contacts that we did. All close contacts have been contacted, and they've been contacted with instructions about how to carry on their instruction virtually and to contact their teachers. Testing procedures and school protocols detected the situation early. Out of the whole situation, it was 1 reported COVID case. And of course, close contacts will be monitored. The bottom line here is it was detected. The staff acted quickly and effectively. We prevented an outbreak further throughout the school, and things were very effective. That was the end game of what our protocols were for, and all of our sanitation and everything came together for an ultimate successful situation. I don't think it could have been any more successful than that. So we're going to continue to monitor that situation over the next couple of weeks and see how it develops. This may not be, and likely won't be, our last situation like this. So we're going to learn. There's going to be some debriefings coming up, and we're going to learn from what worked and what didn't work, and we're going to grow. It's just the way it is. You can plan all you want, but when the rubber hits the road and that plan gets put in place, then that's when you really learn some things. So we learned some things, and we're going to grow. Hopefully we don't have to do it again, but we will be ready if we do. So a lot of discussion moving up to level 3. What does level 3 look like? How do we get students back in the building more days a week? The big one right now is, well, there's 2 big ones. Proper protection during meal times. This says lunch, but during meal times. When students are eating, they're not wearing masks. What does that mean? How can we be safe doing that? And without a mask, the 6-foot social distancing is not going to go away. That's just not going to go away. So that's a big challenge. How are we safe during those meal times? And we have some creative thoughts in place and working towards that. But what's that going to look like? there on the left, you see 6-foot social distancing. So we can barely maintain that in some of our classrooms at the moment in the cohorts. We definitely won't be able to maintain that once we bring students back and they're not cohorted. So there is some talk, some chatter about the CDC in the near future, reducing that down to 3 feet. NIH is on board with that. WHO is on board with that. It's not done yet, but in schools, they're talking about reducing that down to 3 feet, and they've got some data to back that up. So once that's released, we can have that discussion and we can evaluate. We are evaluating if 3 feet is possible. But right now, the social distancing aspect with all the students in the building is proving to be a challenge.
Nick,
With that,
can you
that's the end of
share,
my-
can you go back one slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you share what some of the ideas for proper protection during meal times have been discussed?
Yeah, so they've already rearranged the cafeteria. One of the dynamics that was brought up for schools is if you can't get the 6 feet exactly, have everyone face the same direction so they're not breathing face to face. So we rearranged the cafeteria to see what that looks like, and we're up to, I believe it was 64 people can be in the cafeteria at the same time. We're talking about installing barriers, possibility of installing barriers in the cafeteria so they can sit every other seat and still have that physical barrier between them. And a lot of the other protocols come down to placement of barriers, use of barriers. There was some discussion about having students eat in their classrooms, but if they're not social distance in the classrooms, you have the same kind of issues. And then you have other issues of spills and the logistics of getting the food distributed and things like that. So it's an ongoing discussion that we just don't have tackled at the moment. So that's why it's an obstacle as we consider the move to the next level. And you're going to hear some other obstacles, not necessarily COVID related, and things that are being considered as well as we move forward with the next presentations. Any other questions?
Nick, I would like to go back to last Thursday when you had this incident.
Yes, sir.
I had the opportunity, or I don't want to call it an opportunity, but I talked to the tribal chair today, and he was talking to me as the chairman and a parent. And he was under the impression that last Thursday was a disaster. And he said that protocol, if you have it, sure as hell wasn't followed. And as far as the communication goes, he said there's no communication between this building and the clinic or his office. So I'm kind of confused because
Sure.
all the reports I see where his name is mentioned, Diane Erickson's name is mentioned, and Mike. But apparently he's not getting the information that you're telling me you got. So I'm just kind of concerned that if there's not any communication between this school and that clinic out there. We had that meeting out in Redcliffe here earlier in the fall. And one of the big things that was emphasized was communication. So I'm kind of lost here. Is it happening? Because if it isn't, it's got to. And I think that maybe somebody from here should call Rick tomorrow and find out his feelings on this. Because he was quite ticked off today.
Well, I appreciate that. And I have spoken to Rick, to Chairman. So there was communication. I verified today, there was communication with all the students. Their families were contacted and given direction on how to do instruction when
Well, he
quarantined
said,
because they're moving.
when you said that all the parents or all the families were contacted, he has a daughter that was sent home and he doesn't know when she's supposed to come back to school. So apparently that's not happening.
Well, we will follow we'll circle up and make sure everybody is comfortable. But I verified today that from the principal's level, everybody was contacted. All the families were contacted. Now it was right as it was happening, and some information may have gotten lost in translation. But there is information on the school website, and the contacts have been contacted. Now I don't know who the contacts are. That's not for me to know. That's a public health and administrative issue. because there's some HIPAA and sensitive information with that. So I can't say that I contacted all the families to see if they were contacted. As far as last week being a disaster, I obviously was not there, but all of the follow-up I have had, we've never done this before. Sure, a large number of people put in quarantine. It was an understandable situation that we anticipated at the grade level and the way that those grade levels are being handled, that this might be a larger situation at those grade levels. It's an unfortunate reality. We tried to find a way to cohort those students but it just wasn't logistically possible to do right away. So yes, there's a large number of students that went into quarantine, but I will say that so far, we're not seeing the COVID positive outbreak that's come through that. So I think that it was a huge success. And as far as the communication with the health clinic, I personally contacted the health clinic and their staff first thing in the morning. And before lunch, they had a team at the school. So that communication is happening. The Red Cliff and the school have had great communication. I know I have been there for a lot of it. But the Red Cliff had sent their contact tracing team down and testing team down, and they were at the school before lunch on the day of this event. So there is communication between Red Cliff. And as far as how everything went, I'm not sure what the concerns were, except to say that if you're not in the building, and I experienced this personally, if you're not on the ground to see how the steps were being handled and what the logistical concerns were, the time of day where it happened, the areas that we had designated, like the gym or the cafeteria, to hold close contacts until they could be tested, were in use by other groups in the school. And that was, so there were some challenges that were being worked out real time as it happened. And I think it went really, really well. Of course, we're going to learn from it, and it will be better for the next one.
Yeah, we need to give our administration an opportunity to meet with the staff from Red Cliff as well, and then maybe give the board some more information back, especially in response to Larry's concerns.
Yeah, and I did have several communications with Rick Peterson today. And as Nick said, we need the feedback and to understand how we can do better if there is a next time. And I know that Rick was commented to me the need for more immediate communication with families, not just principals or people calling and talking to teachers, talking to students, but then via phone, which is what happened on Thursday. All families were called and contacted by one of our CAT team members to explain what was happening, and for those students to reach out to their teachers and to make sure that they were bringing their Chromebooks home because they would be virtual students this week. This morning, I met with Principal Shelley Swanson to confirm that all the families were contacted regarding their children transitioning to being virtual learners. And she then got out an email communication this morning, as well as posted it on our district website. So it was not immediate communication in multiple forms, but it was phone calling and contacting families, not only regarding the situation, but then of course asking for consent for testing and asking for the best way to transport their child home. So there are those levels that did occur. I also immediately called Diane Erickson Thursday morning as soon as I found out, and that is how we got their COVID experts here on site, because we do have that open communication and relationship with the tribe. So I do take some issue that there isn't any communication. I strongly disagree.
Well, I'm just telling you what Rick told me, that's all, you know. So if there's a miscommunication there, I mean, you guys take care of it.
I understand that. And as I said, Larry and others, we want to hear it, because was it done perfectly and seamlessly? No, but it was done effectively. It was done in the safest manner that that we know how and how we have been trained, and we go forward from there.
The one thing out of this I would like to see though is the communication I thought was there. The kids knew, the parents knew that I'm the ones that I'm aware of. The things that they don't know, and it's 2 weeks down the road, is they got class this coming week, then it's spring break. What happens after that is what they're asking. You know, when will they get tested? They all know they got to get tested again. So I think it's just getting some more verbiage out there to the families. This is what's going to happen, and when and how you guys are going to set it up. I don't know for that to happen. So I think that needs to get out there to the families.
I have a question or comment, I guess. I don't know if it's necessarily Nick, but I want to know if it's in our best interest to pursue the staff being rapid tested, to have hopefully had prevented a lot of this, including the quarantine of 64 children and multiple staff. But I just think if it's an accessible resource to us and it's available to do and we want to do it, that we should do it, because we're waiting days for results, which, you know, at that point exposes however many number of people. And in a school building, one staff obviously can have exposure to 64 kids, and that may be even a conservative number for all we know. Who knows? That's a long time. It's like 3 days, and they could have been COVID positive Monday when they were in the building. So I just want that to be put on the table, that I'm in support of it. I'm in support of putting district dollars behind it because it will help all of us.
I see Jackie has her hand up. I'll give her a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe I could comment on a few things. Prior to what Nicole just said too, I think that, yeah, we should address the question of the rapid testing. I wanted to comment on Larry's comments that, we haven't been able to have our debrief yet with Red Cliff Clinic and their staff. I think that might clear a few things up or give them some perspective on, maybe some things that they saw that they felt.
Hey, Jackie,
Yep.
we're gonna let the administration meet with the clinic before we just have everybody self-reflecting on this meeting call.
Okay.
Nicole, if I may, to your point of the rapid testing, we discussed that today. There's a few issues we have with that. Of course, the staff can do the self-test, but the Binax Now cards are being supplied by the state, and we don't have a good source of supply. I did reach out to the company, and the company is not able to really supply us. I mean, I think they're selling in batches of 30,000. So they're not really a good source of supply directly, and we don't have a source of supply set up for that. It might be that the state can handle that for us, but that's going to drastically increase the load that we're taking from the state. If we were to do the PCR test, which is also what you get when you mail them out, so it is a little bit better of a test. We just don't have the staff at the school to be able to run that machine to do that number of tests in a reasonable amount of time. It would still take 2 to 3 days. So that it is a topic of discussion that we would like to explore, but there are some hurdles to making that happen.
Is there another report?
Yeah, we have Rick Erickson to share an instructional perspective on our update.
All right. Bonjour, Kinuya. Hello, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. And It's been a busy night already, so I'll try to hit the highlights with respect to instruction. So first of all, I'd say this, level 2 is actually going pretty well. And I think that's a tribute to the amount of time we had to prepare for that and the input that we had from everybody. So with multiple voices at the table, being able to make those adjustments was very helpful. So I think things are going along pretty well. And again, that's not, I'm not going to say I've heard from every staff member, but when we've had discussions during instruction committee meeting, people are feeling pretty good about the way things are going. The days being shortened creates a little bit of an issue. Our class times are a little bit shorter, but it actually has led to some real concentrated instruction. The teachers that I talked to over the last several days feel like they've been utilizing that time very well, and that kids are moving along at a pretty good pace. So that's good news. With respect to moving to level 3, if when the board, the district decide to make that happen, that's going to be a challenge from day one. I think of the levels we talked about, level 3 is the one that has always kind of been perplexing about how we're going to make that happen, because if we bring all students back, that means that all of the teachers will be occupied Monday through Thursday under the current schedule for the full day. And what that does is creates a dilemma for our virtual students. And right now we have 32 K-5 students who are learning virtually, and we have 26 8 students who are learning virtually. So we're talking about 50 or so kids who are in a virtual learning platform. If we move to level 3, we're not really sure how we're going to address those needs. The board approved the hiring of 1 elementary virtual teacher, so we can accommodate the needs of some of those K-5 students, but we're not going to put 32 virtual students in K-5 with 1 virtual teacher. So we haven't resolved even the elementary part of it, and we don't have any resolution right now for the 6-8 virtual student. Ideally, the best scenario would be if we move to level 3 to bring in additional staff for those 4, 5, or 6 weeks to address the needs of the virtual student. But we all know that that's a challenge. We don't know if we can find people who are qualified to do that. We don't know if we can find people who are interested in doing that. That would be a great fix if we could find people who are capable of coming in for those last few weeks of the school year and working with our virtual students so that the staff on hand could be dealing with the in-person. There's some staffing that we could juggle. We haven't really come up with any final resolution to any of these, but it's possible we could cover some of the ELA in the middle school, and possibly one social studies or math, depending on how we adjust our staffing. We might have some flexibility there, but we wouldn't be able to cover all of the middle school with our existing staff. If we brought in additional staff, if that ever worked and we could find people, and that's what the board decided to do, we actually have several options. When we first designed level 3, like I said, we knew that was going to be a challenge, and we didn't really know what it would look like. And so we could just bring back level 3 like we have right now on the schedule, which is a shortened school day starting at 9 o'clock, finishing at 2:30, Monday through Thursday. That gives our existing teachers time to do some prep for the virtual students. We don't know exactly how we would instruct them, but there would be some time available there. If we brought additional staff in who were more independent and could do that work independently, we could potentially extend our level 3 days. We could potentially add Friday back in. If the staff we brought on was super independent and didn't need assistance from the existing in-person staff, we could potentially even move to level 4. But the biggest issue with all of those things is really, what are we going to do with the virtual students? Because we know we're going to have them. We told the community we would have virtual if we didn't year. So we're not going to take that away from them. And like I said, at this point, we have 50 virtual students. I've had a few communications with some of my students. I have a few families who have actually said that if we bring all the students back, they may actually pull their kids because they like the way it's going right now. They feel confident. They feel like the social distancing is working. And if we bring all the students back into the building, they would consider actually pulling their kids out. So right now we have 50 virtual students. If we go to level 3, that number could decrease, that number could increase. We have that flux again of that uncertainty about what our families going to do. If we move to level 3, if that's a decision that the board makes, timing is going to be a question also. we know that we need time to figure that out. So we certainly wouldn't want that dumped on us immediately and then have to scramble to figure out what we're going to do. So we would certainly want some lead time to make that happen. We're still talking about it Friday as an instruction committee meeting. We have talked about, I know that I've heard this discussed before, if we wait until staff is vaccinated, I know Nick just suggested we're looking at early to April to be in to finish their 2-week window. A bigger issue, and I think Shelley is going to address this, and maybe Mike also. A bigger issue is that we've entered standardized testing window, and that runs from the end of March through the beginning of May. And so we've created plans to do standardized testing under level 2. And if we come back into level 3 in the middle of that testing window, that disrupts our standardized testing schedule. So one of the things that the instruction committee is recommending is that once we've entered that window, that we not disrupt that. And we could try to schedule the testing to get it done as quickly as possible. But we wouldn't want to get halfway into the testing and then disrupt the schedule by switching the way that we're bringing kids into the building. Like I said, I think Shelley will address that also. So that's really a kind of a summary of where we are. It's the challenge of dealing with the virtual student. So I would take any questions if anybody has any or comments.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a comment. So as I listen to Rick's presentation, and I've also, been talking to teachers and been thinking about this since the summer, how can we do this? And I think what's Rick saying really builds on some of the concerns of this last positive case too, and how if we had all the students back in the school, that 64 quarantining would be 120 quarantining because there'd be that many more students in the school. So we want to think about it in those terms too, where I feel like I don't know that we need to move to level 3 K-12. We've heard tonight that, we know for a long time that the island has been at level 3 and they're K-5. And we know that the Boys and Girls Club is assisting students grades 3 through 12. And that grades 3 through 12 have the ability to work more independently too, or even be at home. But I am really concerned about the Bayfield School District K2. And how are we meeting their needs? And can we be prioritizing moving K2 to level 3 before we move the whole district? Because if we're getting stuck in saying we don't have a virtual teacher for middle school, high school, we don't have this, we don't have that, maybe we do it in stages, and maybe we don't even get to level 3 for other students because what's working is working. But I just want to throw that out as a possibility. And another thing that I want to say from talking with teachers is that the small groups are really helpful in the elementary. They feel like they're making progress being able to work in the small groups. Can we explore the possibility? But what happens is they have them for 2 days and then they don't have them for 5 days. And so that's a huge gap of time that they're not working with the students. Can we explore the possibility of group A being an AM group and group B being a PM group just for K2? I know that's going to throw busing out of whack. I know that's going to throw specials out of whack, but can we do it? That's the question that I want to ask and that I want to put to the instruction committee and to the board and to the administration, because I think those are the students from everything I've heard tonight that could really use that, and they're already in cohorts. Can we help them have more instruction time with their teachers, have some school every day, 5 days a week or 4 days a week, so they're not going without for 5 days and losing that content that they're getting in the 2 days that they're with their teacher. That's my comment.
I got that down. I'll bring that up Friday.
So I have also gotten feedback from staff and elementary. It sounds like there's some concern around elementary students just being higher energy, a little bit harder to manage in large groups. So if we were moving to level 3, I think that would be a concern that yes, they do deserve full-time school, but are 2 days of one-on-one better than 4 days of somewhat chaotic schedule. And then my other thought is it sounds like we wouldn't be able to move to stage 3 or phase 3 until after standardized testing or testing. And then that's what, part of May through June 10th. So it seems like we could be throwing things into chaos for 3 weeks of school if that's the case. But I don't know if that's just me, but that's just what I've been hearing a little bit of.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a concern others have had also. Thank you.
I would like to say, though, all this talk about moving to stage 3, I think we should start moving on coming up with plans and developing things on going that direction. You know, because that's always been our goal, is to make it move to the next step. So, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do it right away, but I think we really need to start thinking about those next steps. And I know, Rick, you guys been working on it and stuff, but really get down with it, because, you know, here we are, and you're talking maybe April, maybe May beginning. But we should come up with some next steps.
Thanks. Mike, since we're on the topic of elementary specific, if you could share your principal perspective for elementary, and then we'll move to Shelley for middle and high school.
Yeah. Hey, welcome everyone. Listening to all the comments that have taken place so far, these are the same comments that I've had in my head, same thoughts, same ideas. I want the kids back 5 days a week, everybody, and I want to get there as soon as possible. But there are some constraints that we have to realize, and obviously that I think Nick brought up the most important ones, and that's that 6 foot distancing. And then what do we do for our lunchtime? Because as we bring more kids in, it's either going to be, we have to forego that 6 foot. We have to have proper barriers in place, which we do not have at this time. And once we get that, if the board says we're good with the 3 foot mitigation, can you guys hear me fine? Okay, all right. If we're fine with the 3 foot distancing as part of the mitigation protocol, then we can start looking at that. Looking at the idea that I think Rick brought up a good point, is that when we decided back before second semester started that we would offer virtual, because at the beginning of the school year, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I wasn't here at the very beginning, but the choices for virtual for the first semester were only through a third party entity called Eduseer. And when I came in and the discussion started moving to, hey, can we offer virtual with our Bayfield staff? That required a lot of flexibility on our part. And as we move to level 3, we would have to have that same type of flexibility. We've got enough kids that we would need all of our teachers, and that would still leave 32. And then my worry is that with what Rick said, some families might decide that, you know what, if we do not have the 6 foot distancing and everybody's back, now I don't feel comfortable with my kid being in school. So we'd have to kind of find out what those numbers might look like before we go to that next level, to make sure that we're not getting some really out of balance stuff. Another thing that we need to consider is just that schedule. The schedule is going to have to change. It's going to have to go back to a normal schedule with our specials. And that's going to take a little bit of time to come up with. Not that can't be done. That's I think probably the easiest of the part. I think Esme brought up a good point as far as like, if we go to this, there's going to be a transition period. And that transition period was the same thing we had when we started second semester. It's almost like starting a brand new school year. The kids have to be, brought in a way that, okay, here are the protocols, here are the procedures, here's how it works. I know that we think our kids can just do this on the drop of a dime, and well, they've been to school before, so they know it. But every school year in the elementary school, it takes a good 6 weeks for kids to learn the new protocols, the new rules, how to get along and do all that stuff. It takes a long time to build that community. And as much as we like to think that they can just kind of jump into it, they're not going to be able to do it. So it is going to take some time as we go to level 3 to get everybody up to speed on that. When I say everybody, I'm talking about the staff, the teachers, and the students. And then, of course, we've got, I think somebody brought up the idea of the standardized testing, that, if we want our results to be as accurate as possible, we want to make sure that we're not disrupting that standardized testing. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because the window opens up next week, and that's when we start our spring break. But most school districts, what they do is they try to wait till the end of the window to offer as much opportunity for kids to experience the curriculum before they take the standardized test. So looking at when we would take that test, to offer our kids the best opportunity to do well at it, we usually push that back a little bit and do it towards the end of the window. Talking to the folks in the instruction committee, it looks like the thought is to have that testing all finished up before the end of April, which means then we could possibly come back in the beginning of May. And that comes back to what Esme was talking about, is there enough time at the end of the year for that to actually be an effective use of moving to that level, or are we better staying at level 2 and just doing that really well? So those are just some of the thoughts that I've had. And, this isn't going to get solved by one person's idea or one person doing something. This is going to be a group effort from the board, from the administrative team, and from the teaching staff. So any questions for me? All right, Miigwech.
And Shelley? Yep, Shelley here. I just want a lot of the same things that Rick and Mike just covered, but a few things just to add in there also with the state testing. It is mandatory, which talking to Stephanie Lewis today, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because the state is telling us to focus on the social, emotional, and mental health of our students. Oh, and by the way, we're going to still do mandatory academic testing. But part of that is they're not focusing just on the growth of the students. They're really using this mandatory state assessment to see where the largest gaps are and how we can fix those giant gaps, because they're expecting really big gaps this year, and what is needed, what type of funding would be needed to remedy that next fall, when hopefully we're all back in school 5 days a week, full days. On top of that, the expectation is 95% of students do take the assessment. And so out of a class of 30, that if we have 2 that don't take it, we've already not met that goal. What does that mean for virtual students? There is no assessment piece for virtual students. So we have to set up some time for the families to bring their students in. And right now with the level 2 schedule, we do have a schedule we think will work, and that's between April 19th and April 29th. And we use 3 of the Fridays to bring in the virtual students to get the assessment piece done. The state, what they offered us as our bonus is they have opened the test up till 8 p.m. 3 nights a week and Saturdays. So if we can't get those virtual families to come in when we have other staff and students in the building, we do have a few more hours to persuade them to bring, if we need to do an assessment with only their child in the building, because there is that fear still. Some families that have high medical needs of not coming into a building at all with any other people. I do know that the window closes May 14th, but we like to have 2 weeks open to do some makeup testing for students who may have missed out. And trying to look at all my notes from the meeting. If we were to move into the level 3, one of the biggest concerns for the content teachers is how are we going to get those comparable learning minutes for hybrid students versus the virtual? And we want to offer an equal education to all of our students. And if they're teaching 4 days a week in person, how are they going to squeeze in that 4 days of teaching to the virtual students would be the biggest question.
Thanks, Shelley. No action needed from what I hear. Is there any more questions, comments, input from the board? Do we have anyone else that's presenting under there? Board, good. We're moving to new business. 7.1, consider sale of 2017 school bus. Joel?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for your time this evening, and thanks for everybody for being here. Looking at the school bus, it's 2017 bus that has 6,300 miles on it. I have some concerns about the amount of time that the bus sits, the amount of use it gets, just overall concern about at some point, because we don't have a regular mechanic on staff, at some point we could have a breakdown, and then how is that managed? How do we get those students off that bus? Who do we contact? So on and so forth. I've talked with Viking Bus, and they have agreed that if we provide some of our staff to be insured by their insurance company, that for activities that we would need a large bus for, we could certainly contract them for the mileage rate, which I think is right around $1.80, $1.90 a mile for contracting that purpose. So if you divide the 6,300 miles over that amount of time, that's actually pretty cheap transportation in regards to that. So that is my recommendation to get rid of that bus. Not to mention, we don't have any place to store it either. It just sits outside in the elements. So those are my concerns.
Oh, sorry, Joel.
Go
I would
ahead.
like to make a motion to sell the bus. Doesn't seem to make sense to maintain something or not maintain something that depreciates, so.
I'll second that. Are we gonna put a minimum on the bid? That would it accept?
Yeah.
We should-
Joel, you'll work with Randy to make sure that there's a minimum bid requirement.
Yeah, the company that we purchased the bus from is the one that gave us that estimate between 58 to 60,000. So Randy and I will come up with a figure for that, certainly.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Esme and a second by Larry. Is there any more board discussion?
Mike, just one question. We have to put this out for bid, right?
I would think so, in the procurement disposal.
We just can't
Yeah.
sell it to a private party for 58,000 and be done with it. We have to go through the formalities.
Right. The gentleman that gave me the quote said to let him know because he has some interested parties. So that shouldn't be an issue.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Joel. Joel, you must be up
welcome.
next as well on 7.2, consider shower replacement estimate.
Yeah, this is an updated quote from KBK Services. Dave originally got a quote back in January of 2020 for the same items. That quote was $30,700, so it's gone up $2,000 in a year to replace the showers in both locker rooms, which at this current time are non-operational.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Debbie and a second by Esme. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. 7.3, consider adding office space to third floor.
This came about due to a couple of reasons. Mike Peterson came to me a couple weeks ago and says, I have some virtual staff that needs to have some space to teach from, and there isn't any.
Well, what's the price tag?
I don't know price tag on this yet, Nicole, but I just want to share that we have a need for space. We have a need for some equipment to, for HVAC equipment to better serve the third and second floor, and there's an opportunity there as well. I just want to say that since I've been here in my office, I've found several different drawings from past potential projects that have not come through fruition, and I want to make sure that this is something that we want to do before I spend the board's and the district's time and resources. I mean, I understand you want to know the cost, but I just want to make sure that I move in the right direction before I do that.
You're just asking for permission to get estimates.
Correct.
Well, I think it's a good use of space. And if it's space that we need and it's open for improvement, I think we should at least explore it.
I agree.
Where is it exactly? Is it a classroom that's being cut up? I couldn't quite pick.
It's
Do you know where
above
the
the
catwalk is,
library
Magdalene?
hallway.
You know where the
above-
catwalk is?
Yeah, okay.
It would be filling in that space adjacent to the catwalk, right outside the library.
Where are all the virtual teachers? The fellows.
I like that you're looking to use the space that we already have. You know, if there's a need.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking for space for, for equipment to get rid of those unit heaters, those unit ventilators in the classrooms, as well as space that's needed for growth for other staff as well.
Do we need a motion on that, Nicole?
I think Joel, I'm hearing that is trying to be considerate of long-term plans for this building's use and whether or not we keep investing in it. But I'm fine with seeking estimates because, I mean, I don't know if there's other options. We're only being presented one option, but I don't know.
There's really no other options for space in the building unless we go up or out.
Okay. Or new.
Well, get a price for it and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Larry and a second by Glenn to allow administration to seek estimates on adding office space to the third floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 7.4 on our agenda, consider acquisition of ballpark and garden property.
I approached the city in regards to that piece of property. I have a surveyor contract signed for a surveyor to come and do the survey to find out boundaries, so on and so forth. And once that is done, approach the city in regards to what it would take for the district to acquire that property.
And Joel,
And I would like,
I would
go
just
ahead.
like to point out that I think this is a topic most appropriate for executive session, dealing with the acquisition and negotiation of the purchase of real estate.
Okay. So how do you want me to proceed?
I
Just
think
table it for now?
it's fine to proceed, but I think further discussion, once you get a price or anything, that all should be in closed session. Because that's a
Very
negotiation.
good, Glenn.
Yeah, I think that's a negotiation, and that's just my opinion.
So for now, Joel, you're getting it surveyed and we'll start there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Sounds good.
So the district is covering the cost of this survey.
Yeah, the estimate was around $3,500 for surveying the 4 plots of property we have up on the hill.
We've got to know that. We need that information, you know, regardless of what we do.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
far
leave
as
it
the
up to
survey,
agenda. Either we table it or something.
Oh, I think that it's fine to move forward to begin discussion of the acquisition. I might make that motion, but I think that further discussion as we proceed before we make a decision on the actual acquisition should be in closed session.
We have a motion by
second it.
Glenn and a second by Larry. Is there any more board discussion?
The city should give it to us.
All those in favor? Please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
And those are the kinds of discussions we'll have in closed session, Larry.
Okay.
Motion carries. Moving on to 7.5, consider multi-purpose outdoor indoor classroom building.
okay, so last meeting I came to you with some wants and needs, and one of the wants was a storage building, and one of the needs was a storage building. One of the, I guess, wants or wishes was a outdoor classroom. And during further discussion with Beth and a couple of instructors and some other folks, we thought, and one of my ideas was that if you're going to have an outdoor classroom for the little ones, you should also have an indoor classroom so it's used more, so they can go in and warm up if necessary. So we thought maybe it would be good just to build one facility up on the hill after we hopefully acquire this property, and put it all into one facility, which could house the storage needs, the indoor outdoor classroom, maybe even a couple classrooms, because I know are some instructors now that don't have classrooms that need space. There's a potential for a new hire that would need some space. So I budgeted, I believe, right around $220,000 with those outdoor classroom and storage combined. So we could take that monies if approved, and I don't imagine that we could do a facility like that for that amount of money, but I would like to consider getting some drawings and so on for that purpose, to get some estimates.
So, did we talk about where the money would come from? Was it COVID fund related?
Yeah.
There is some COVID money out there, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I talked to a couple of teachers and they didn't think the idea of having a classroom attached to a building that's going to have machinery and stuff in it was a good idea.
It's going to be primarily for storage, Larry, more than anything. But there might be some vehicles stored in there, but I assure you that it would not be, everything would be up to code and be totally safe. So if we're going to build a facility like that, we're going to make sure that we're protected in regards to firewalls and so forth. It's really no different than a boiler room within a facility.
I guess if you're going to call this a outdoor building, part of a classroom, then I think you should say that it's going to be a multi-purpose outdoor building, but don't put the classroom on it. Isn't there some teachers' money going to go into this?
I'm sorry?
There's 2 teachers that got awarded some money. Aren't they going to be a part? Is that going to be part of that?
There's $12,000, which
Would they have
Annie and
over that?
Karen procured. Yeah, that would be part of that. Yeah, exactly.
Would they have any say over that $12,000 and how it's spent?
It's for an outdoor classroom, which there would be, so
Well, it won't be outdoors if it's a, well, enclosed building.
it's a combination of an indoor and an outdoor space, Larry.
Joel, we need to see some ideas, I guess, because
Yeah.
just having the discussion's going nowhere. So if you could just work on that, that's not saying the board is approving it to happen. That's saying just bring us some ideas like you have the office space. I'm fine with
Thank you.
that.
Thanks, Nicole.
I don't know that we need action from the board or no, because you're hired a surveyor for without the board knowing, so that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Well, that goes back to replacing the bleachers and the things like
Mhm.
that need to be done at the ball field, and we can't do anything without a survey.
Yep.
So that's why I started with that.
So once you have more information, just bring it back.
I just
Sounds
want to
good.
note, also that the surveyor was only like $34,000 or $3,400, so it wasn't obligated to bring to the board. I think our board policy says 10,000 and above.
I don't know. It's unclear. Moving on to 7.6, we have LaPointe School Conceptual Design. Beth?
Sure. This is something that was brought to, my gosh, I'm just drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
It's been on that committee for, well, since 2014 and before, so it's been 6 or 7 years. It's been on the agendas.
Yeah, and I'll let Joel speak to the specifics of the report, the most current report, and fill you all in on what's happened since.
Well, it's a 2014 report that was done by John Gerzina and his firm, architectural firm, which brought up several building deficiencies. And since that point in time, and even came up with a budget in regards to that. And since that point in time, the only thing that has been improved is the kitchen, some roofing, and a couple of exterior doors. So, I mean, I understand that maybe the board's a little frustrated with me with asking, for permission to move forward with certain things. But when I look at a 2014 assessment that's not done, I'm concerned about exactly when we do these things, how is it that we're not moving forward on some of the things that have been pointed out? So I guess I need to know from the board, do we intend to spend money and do some of these repairs on this building? Because once we start, we might get into a scenario where we have to do certain upgrades in regards to accessibility, ADA compliances, bathroom compliances, and things like that. So we have to be very cautious on how we proceed in regards to what we do in this facility to bring it up, if we're going to bring it up to code or not bring it up to code, or do we move in an entirely different direction?
Joel, is there an inspection every year over there?
Yeah.
No, this was something that was reported back in 2014, and the report is attached. I'm not sure if everyone on the board is familiar with it or not.
I'd like to say something here. This is something that's been on many agendas. and it's just been continued to put off. And what I participated in last spring was a meeting at the LaPointe Library with Jeff Gordon, Dave Weber, parents like Sarah Trudeau, who comes to our meetings as a LaPointe parent, Lauren Shupe, who's an active parent, Hillary and Nate Nelson. So a number of families and myself. And the discussion was, what do we do? Where do we go with the LaPointe School? And Sarah Trudeau and that group had been bringing up ideas of, this doesn't meet code. There's all kinds of problems here that are affecting the ability for us to provide education for our students. If we start trying to think about putting in an elevator and getting their bathrooms up to code and replacing the floors and working on all the water that seeps in the basement and roofing, it's like, why do we keep putting money in a building that's, not structurally as sound and not up to code versus building a new one-story simple building that can accommodate the students and the classrooms and the space that's needed. And so then at that point, Jeff Gordon and Dave Weber were in agreement that we shouldn't be sticking more money into this, but we started talking about if we would need a referendum. And as most of you should recall, we had somebody come in to our board meeting in, I believe, March or April of last year and do a presentation about a referendum that would include replacing the LaPointe School. And again, because of the COVID impact on our lives at that point, again, this was all put aside. So, this isn't new. This is something that's been around, especially since 2014 and before that, when my daughter was there, that the school has continued to not address, in my mind. Dave did a lot of little things to address, like the kitchen and some lighting and some flooring. Meg's done a fantastic job of painting. So we continue to put Band-Aids on it. But this is something that has been put off for years.
I think being a new board member and seeing this assessment was pretty shocking that nothing was, moved on years ago. It seems like the structural integrity is questionable at this point, and it's going to take, if we're going to start building tomorrow, it's still going to take time. So I don't see this as something that we can avoid. And if we start getting serious about getting an estimate and a conceptual or a design for the building, I think in our meeting, maybe Debbie, you can correct me, but we were talking about the fact that the island wanted to discuss building something that would be sort of a green building in concept and using green materials. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was also raising the question, can we look into getting grant funding or, getting creative funding this building, especially if it's going to be used as an example for eco-friendly buildings in the future.
Yeah, the community group had actually started to go out and look at some other, research some other buildings in Wisconsin, other schools that have been set up that are using eco-friendly materials and have gotten a lot of grants to be able to do that. So
I personally think that we need to move forward. We need to figure out what the school would look like. I think we talked about surveying the community on LaPointe and the parents, especially, and seeing what the needs are. And then Larry mentioned, I think that we need to make sure that we're thinking about the future and building big enough, not too big, but building big enough for future families and students. But we need to know what they want first, and then what that will cost.
One of the things that I thought about too, we were talking about this at the Building and Grounds meeting, and it seemed to me like we talked about looking at what it's going to cost to replace that building up there. And we also talked that in the intermediate right away, that even if we decided that we were going to build a building, we still had to put money into this building. So, you know, and it's hard for me to sit here and try to say that borrowing money to build a new school over there when we had maybe at some point in time 20 kids. You know, we got a big school here. Why don't we bring them over here?
Well, that's a whole nother bottle of.
But I understand that. But you know, we're gonna have to, I don't know, what's it gonna cost? $20 million?
I don't know, but you're not going to get people sending their kindergartners across on a wind sled and a boat, you know. And the other thing is, with the tax money that LaPointe gives to this district, you know, there's a lot of people over here that feel like we should at least be able to have a building that is equitable. I mean,
I don't think
the tax dollars, we pay half the tax dollars that come into the district.
I guess before I argue about those points, I'd like to see what the dollar amount is.
I don't even want to see a dollar amount.
Can we start by asking the community what they need out of a school so we
We
know?
need to ask this entire district want. It's not about what LaPointe wants. It's about what the district wants.
So then the district would have to have
We're on
the
the bus over an hour. It's not about transportation. There's Head Start kids over there that come over here.
They're not doing that anymore.
They did it for how long, Debbie? Decades. So
Yeah, but they stopped doing it. Yeah, and that's with parents. They only go over with a parent. And when there's a wind sled, they don't go. So they are monitored by their parent when they go. So if you're going to do this for the whole district, then the whole district needs to have the 2014 assessment that's attached here, because they can't talk about making a decision unless they have all the information. Craig Hoopman was one of the first people that had been over there in a long time and did a full tour and was totally shocked. And he's been living in Bayfield in this community for his whole lifetime, and he had no idea what the condition of that building was. So
yeah, it sounds like really concerning that we're allowing kids in there right now.
Yeah.
That's what sounds concerning to me, is that those kids shouldn't even be in that building because it sounds like a liability to our school.
Well, Dave Weber had done a lot so that it does have its lighting fixtures are up to date. The exit signs are up to date. Some doors have been replaced and are up to code. So there are some things that, but it's like, if you're going to continue to do any further, so say we want to add on or replace a room or replace some walls. If we start doing bigger projects there, then we run into, we have to, the law is going to say, then we have to make it ADA compliant. And I don't know, Randy had figures several years ago about what it would cost to put an elevator in there. And I don't remember. Randy, do you remember what that was like back in?
It's in that assessment. If Randy was to page down, it's like $225,000.
Yeah, but I don't want the conversation to be about two options. We fix that building or we build a new school, because that is not the two options. Those are not the only options.
What is the third option then? Or what are the other options?
We are not legally required to have an elementary school on the island. We don't have one in the settlement where we have kids riding the bus 45 minutes to an hour. So if we start opening that door, but because they don't pay enough taxes, they won't get their own school.
No, it has to do with the body of water. It really does. It has to do with 2.5 miles of water that has to be crossed. And the risk that's involved in that for young children.
You know, and again, I for me to sit here and try to make a decision on something that I have no idea what the cost is going to be either way. And until that is, I still would like to see something if if it's gonna happen.
I'm with Larry. I'd like to see the cost. And I'd like to see, because I don't think we're talking about closing the school on the island. That's ridiculous. That is cutting off our nose. That would just be financially suicidal. But what is rational is let's look at what the costs that it really would be to bring it up to code, to ADA versus building a new school. And I think until we have that comparison, the rest of the conversation is really just gets to be an emotional badminton.
You know, at the time when we talked about the referendum, we talked about building 2 schools, if I remember right.
Yep. Yeah, we were on track for that, Larry, until something called COVID came along, and
Yeah, I thought it looked good too.
yeah. But
So do we
I
need a
think
motion? Can we make do we need a motion then to ask Joel to start to put together the figures for a 1-story building on that space, and what it would cost to bring that building completely up to code with ADA and make all the repairs necessary?
So moved.
A second.
In
No,
discussion.
In discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just in discussion that I think someplace in that whole concept, if we're going to build a school, we're going to build a school. But if we're going to spend money on that to keep it open till that school is built, I'd like to know what the heck that's going to be.
That's what the motion was for both of those things.
Yeah.
But I would prefer that they're separate. They're 2 separate concepts.
Yeah, I suppose.
But they're comparative, right? I mean, you need to know what.
Not on any level. We're talking about a new school, you guys.
I
That's
guess-
not saying we need to fix that school up. That's saying we should just address the immediate need right now versus a long-term planning deal that involves our entire district and not just this board.
Yeah,
And
I
not just the island for parents that come and want to design their own school.
I think the assumption that has been made that may be not true is that the cost of a new building wouldn't be simply, considering obsolescence and everything, a bad deal versus repairing it for everyone, for the district, not for the island, for the district. So that's, I think, is it 2 million versus $1 million, right? Well, if that's and you're talking about a much longer time period, that's worth at least looking at.
So Glenn, what did it cost to build a fire hall?
It's funny what costs you count, but if you're going to load everything up with including architectural fees and site prep and everything, it was probably 3.5 million for the 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
But those 2 buildings are not used the same way, so that's not a good comparison at all.
No, the fire hall has I think a 60,000 gallon water reservoir underneath it to run the sprinkler system. So yeah, no, it's a different thing.
So what we were saying, Larry, what I heard you saying was that and what you said at the building and grounds meeting was, that we need to know what it will cost us, what it would cost the district to repair that building and bring it up to code if we were to do that. And if it's going to be very expensive, we need to look at how that compares to the price of just taking it out and doing a new building. I mean, that's the kind of comparison you talk about in any replacement of schools or any kind of replacement project. So if I know Randy had a lot of figures put together back in 2014 and 15. So maybe those can be updated, and Joel, if you can get pricing on, you know, that's, I guess that was my motion, is to have some comparisons so we can make a responsible decision as a district to make sure that we're taking care of all of our buildings.
Well, I guess too, we got to keep in mind that, you know, if it came to building a new building over there, we would still have to put something into this building till that old new building is built. And I'd like to know what that cost is going to be.
What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, we could get like a cost analysis for the next 10 years of use for that building, and then we would know if we continue to use the current schoolhouse building, what would we need to do for the 2 or 3 years until the new school is built. So there's 3 estimates. There's just what would it take to continue using the school, and then there's in 10 years what needs to happen in 2 years, in 5 years, what's immediate, and then there's building a new school. That's what I'm hearing.
I think what Larry's asking me is, what are the immediate needs? What does it need immediately to keep it going for the next 3 years without spending a tremendous amount of money or getting into code issues? Correct?
Yeah, something like that.
That's what I'm hearing. And then also look at the possibility of whatever concept that is going to be, and how I'm going to gather that information from the folks in the district in regards to what those needs are.
Well,
Correct.
I feel like the board would have to gather all that information and put it together in a format that everybody could read and have clear information on, and say the board was making at some point making a recommendation, you know, or bring it to referendum. That's what a referendum is. Or you just decide that just like we decide that we need to add a multipurpose outdoor indoor classroom or more office space, you know, or all the COVID money that's being used to update and upgrade the building in Bayfield. You know, those are decisions that seem pretty easy to make, of spending that money to put the money into the Bayfield so that we have a good school there. We need to do that with all our buildings.
No, you talk about money, the money that's are being put into the school. Look at how much money we put into this school in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
We could have
These
built
are
a new
two
school.
very different buildings, though. We're talking about traditional stick-built, older home quality, and then we're talking about a historic brownstone building that withstands hundreds of years. So just two different types of properties overall.
Can we call the question?
I don't have who made the
To
motion.
clarify the question, because I think, Joel, I'm not sure that what was just explained was what I thought we were doing.
No.
I don't think we were looking at just asking you what it's going to cost to keep that building going for the next 2 or 3 years. That's not what we were asking.
No.
What we're asking is, what would it cost to bring it up to code? And some rough estimate. I mean, I don't want architectural plans. I don't want a lot of time, but some rough per square foot estimate of how many square feet would we need if we started over, and what would be a reasonable cost per square foot. And if you want to use the cost per square foot of the fire hall, which is probably way high, but it's island constructed and it's steel framed, and you know, it would take a hurricane to knock it over probably, and not even then. Just compare the square footage. Don't, you know, I wouldn't spend a lot of time, but that's my intent, is what's the repair versus the replace.
I know that John has talked that they've recently done some schools and some school remodels, so he'll have a fairly accurate square foot price. I'll use the square footage of the current building, which I think is around 8,000 square feet as a starting point. And then I'll have him update this quote in regards to what is attached to this 2014 assessment, because that basically is stating what it would take to bring the building up to code. I'll have him update that. That would give us the answers I believe we're looking for in the shortest amount of time without spending a tremendous amount of money.
Oh, no, you always keep talking about putting it up to code. You know, I think that without putting elevators in there and stuff like that, we're never going to bring it up to code.
That's what I mean, Larry. If you
Building,
look at
that's a
this,
different story. If we're not going to keep the building, then let's don't put an elevator in it.
No,
I'm
no.
not saying I'm going to. I'm just asking them to update the information that is on that assessment. That's what I'm going to ask him to do. Just update that information.
Okay.
Bring up information.
Is that?
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
I'm fine with Glenn's description, but I'm not okay with bringing in groups of people to conceptually design their ideal school. That's not okay with me at all.
No, that was, they
all I'm
were,
going to do.
they were
all I'm gonna
talking
do
about
right now,
ideas, that's all. Just like
All I'm
you.
going to do right now, Nicole, is I'm going to have John update this 2014 assessment and have him give me a square footage comparison, cost per square foot on what it would take to build that school. That's all I'm going to do for now. And then I'll come back to you with those numbers.
That's
My question is though, if you guys are looking at putting a new school over there, where are you going to put it? And is it going to be in the same place, or do we have to purchase more land, or how is that going to look also? So that should all be included in that. Because I mean, if we're not going to build it on the same spot.
Yeah, and I think Cindy, that's to Larry's point, which is that the cost of building either, no matter what, right? Even if you put in an elevator, you got to do it make sure you do it in the summer. But if you're going to build a new school, you're going to have disruption. If it's on the same spot, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with the kids for that year or so that you're building, or 2 years you're building the new school. So those costs would, if you do a new school, those costs definitely would need to be figured in, and demolition and all of that other stuff.
Yeah, most often I've seen schools where my kids grew up, and I know when we did the Bayfield, some rebuilding at Bayfield with the cafeteria and some of those things, is that they are able to do a lot in the summer, and sometimes they might have to extend the spring and the fall a little bit to make up or have them use some alternative space. But especially with the way buildings and so forth are constructed and made these days, I think, that definitely will be a consideration, but I can't imagine it taking 2 years to build a one-story, pretty simple building. So, but that's something will come out in the wash. So Glenn, you made the motion, and what, Larry
Call
seconded?
question.
Yeah.
I don't know who made the motion.
Glenn.
I seconded it.
Did.
And Esme.
Glenn, Esme, to be clear, the motion is not as listed on the agenda, LaPointe School Conceptual Design. The motion is for Joel to identify and update the items in the assessment and bring back a new budget for what those would look like. And we'll compare that to what a new building would
Per
cost.
Square foot cost.
Yeah.
A per square foot cost of something of equal, that we, something to replace what's there.
I still disagree that we're leaving that as our only option. But whatever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm voting
Opposed.
opposed. I'm not opposed to the meeting the needs, but
Okay.
I didn't hear Magdalene's.
I said aye, but just to respond to you, Nicole, I feel like getting information doesn't mean that those are the only two options we're considering. But we can't like even consider those options or weigh them against any other option until we have that information.
Mhm. But it doesn't require board action. That's the challenge. 7.7, consider staff retirements, Barb Ralph and Missy Ide. Both early retirement.
Motion approved.
We have a motion by Cindy and a second by Larry. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I can't, oh, Esme has her camera off. Can you go back to where we can see all the people? Because I can't tell who's voting if we can't see them. Motion carries. 7.8, consider NSTD resolution.
Now, this is just for the annual meeting. It has always been, since we've been with the trust, that I would do it, that I would go to the meetings. And just this year, they made it board resolution. I'm not sure why they did that, but it's just me going to the meeting of the annual board. And it's new this year where they made it a board resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Debbie and a second by Larry. Any question? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. 7.9, consider 21-22 CISA 12 services contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Larry, second by Debbie. Any
And discussion, yeah, how is that contract looking compared to last year's contract? Are we changing some of the services?
There will be some tweaks when we continue to evaluate what our needs are, but it was approximately a 2% increase from last year.
Which is what? About what's it, that in dollars?
It was about $12,000 increase over last year.
But didn't you say it was still less than last year's?
Probably 2 years ago.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I say, I thought you said at the meeting that it was less than last year or the year before, whatever it was.
The year before, because we did take on some of our own PT and OT services. So those did decrease. We're also looking at cutting some other programs that we have to meet with department heads about.
Okay.
All those in favor, please
Aye.
say aye.
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 Motion carries. 7.10, consider math curriculum purchase.
Motion to approve.
Bonjour.
Hold on, we have a motion on the floor.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second that.
We have
And
a
then
motion,
discussion, yeah.
motion by Debbie, second by Larry. Are there any questions?
Yes, let's see what we've got.
Here we go.
Okay, are we ready?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share this high school math presentation with you tonight. I would like to share with you the process of choosing a math curriculum that we feel will be one that best meets the needs of our Bayfield High School students. After looking at our district's curriculum review cycle in September, it was noted that our math curriculum was up for review this year and had to be purchased for the beginning of the 2021-22 school year. Therefore, I began scheduling meetings for our math curriculum review team. Next slide, please. Our math curriculum review team consists of teachers and math specialists from our 4K-12 staff and both principals. 2 CISA 12 staff members were invited to one of our first meetings in October, and they were able to direct us in the process of our search for a math curriculum that would serve our district students' needs the best and one that meets the Wisconsin Common Core state standards. The first thing our team was to develop a vision statement for our district. I will read this vision statement to you. The vision for 4K-12 mathematics education in the school district of Bayfield is to nurture a comprehensive mathematical identity in all of our students, helping them to see themselves as capable and confident mathematicians. While meeting students at their cognitive levels, students learn challenging and relevant mathematics through the development of conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and application. Our heterogeneously grouped classrooms are set up as creative, collaborative, and visual student-centered learning spaces. Students are active team members who engage in mathematical discussions in a safe and supportive environment, solve real-life and theoretical problems, and use mathematics effectively in a diverse and evolving global society. Next slide, please. The team looked through edreports.org for a 4K-12 math curriculum that meets expectations in focus and coherence, rigor and mathematical practices, alignment rating, and usability rating. Edreports.org is led by outstanding classroom educators, principals, district leaders, and state administrators who deeply understand the Common Core standards and the importance of high quality instructional materials. These educators meet over several months to examine materials, gather evidence, and come to a consensus on scoring recommendations while comparing curricula. Math curriculum team members reviewed several of the math series that were listed on edreports.org that met all expectations and reported out their findings at the next few meetings. After reviewing edreports.org, the high school math curriculum team representative scheduled a presentation to view the most recent edition of Envision AGA and Pre-Calculus Calculus, which is the curriculum they have been using for the past 6 years. The high school math teachers are excited to be able to acquire the newest version of their current math curriculum, which they feel best fits the needs for their students at the high school level. They strongly encourage the school board to approve their recommendation. Envision has been updated to include all of the components that are necessary to meet expectations in all the areas scored by edreports.com. Envision AGA can be integrated with our Canvas platform and with Infinite Campus. The virtual nerd videos and the Help Me Solve This are both included as tutorials for our students. Envision also contains a readiness assessment at the beginning of each topic and includes staff training. The quote for Envision is based on a 6-year purchase of math materials and digital components that go along with each program for our high school students and math teachers. When broken down annually, the cost for the high school Envision AGA and Pre-Calculus Calculus math series is $5,446 a year. The Envision AGA representative also let the team know that they would send out the consumable materials on an annual basis, so our district does not need to find storage for these books. I would like to say Chi Miigwech for your time this evening and for your consideration in purchasing 6 years of Envision AGA for the high school. Thanks for your time. I know it's been a long night.
Any questions from the board? Thanks, Janine.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor from Debbie and a second by Larry. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We've done a roll call.
Meg, yeah, but if I can see everybody, I can see. Well, I can, yeah. Motion carries. 7.11, consider ECCP 2021-2022 fall semester. Does it seem low?
This is something,
I mean, don't we usually have like 20 kids in dual credit?
this is different. This is something else, ECCP,
Dan Livingston, are you in the meeting?
'Cause it's
I
not-
can't see everybody who's on.
right? Oh,
Yes, I'm here.
All right, do you want to
Oh, okay.
speak to this and give the board some information?
Well, we did the registration and provided the materials to students and families, and is a very low number considering, as was referenced previous years, we had 16 to 18 in the dual credit course taught through the English department. And moving forward, as you can see, we have 4 interested next year in that dual credit, and then 1 student interested in WITC.
Wow.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Cindy and a second by Larry. Is there any more discussion or questions, board? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Motion carries. 7.12, consider job descriptions.
We discussed these in our policy meeting, I believe, and Cindy, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they looked good.
Yeah. So I'll motion approved.
A second.
In discussion, we're motioning to approve job description for education agriculture coordinator. Did we take action to add that position?
Don't believe so, just to approve the overview of what it would look like.
Okay.
And again, I'm not opposed to the position, but I just still have that, it's still in my mind about Karen saying no to the Redcliffe Garden and not wanting anything from it. So it just hard for me to go along with this because of that, If everything is going to be utilized in the garden, then fine.
Well, for point of clarification on that comment, and thanks for bringing that up. Karen's comments were specific to this spring, and with COVID, there are a lot of limitations on what she can use. So for example, we haven't had a working salad bar because of touch points and just how that food has to be out for access for lunches. So I know that she is interested in using ingredients that she can for the fall, and we've started those discussions. But that comment was in particular reference to spring needs from the Redcliffe Farm.
We have a motion by Cindy, a second by Esme. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. 7.13, consider Neola Volume 29, number 2.
Have you all had a chance to get in there to view any of these policies?
No.
I went through them all, and there's a lot of them that don't have anything marked in the options. So
I know
does it?
No, we had gone through them and we thought we got everything that was supposed to be marked.
Well, some of them we wanted all the options. There were a bunch of them that we wanted all the options. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
It
they're
could have been
all
all
open.
marked, probably. But there was 2 in this group that we were tabling, and Beth, do you recall which ones those were, or Linda?
Yeah, it was the graduation requirement, because we didn't have all the information for that. Yeah, and the gifts, it was a gifts, was that a board? Coming in
bring
front
my
of the
papers.
board with any gifts? There are 3 different sections in there, I believe, with gratuities. One's to the staff, one's to the board, and then one's to the district. But I'm not
Beth
sure
was
which.
Beth wanted us to table them so she'd get more clarification on those ones, so.
With our COVID case on Thursday.
Yeah.
It was I haven't had a chance to talk with Dan Livingston or Shelley on the graduation requirements. We wanted to make sure that that language was accurate and that it reflected all components of graduation requirements, because I know there was discussion that you all had on community service.
Mhm.
And if that was something that was valuable to look ahead and add, or just where we are now. And honestly, we need more time to visit that. So I want to hold that one aside. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the specifics on the grant one right off the top of my
I
head.
don't either.
So I think holding those, move on with the other ones that
Yeah.
you all felt were.
Right. Yeah.
Can't hear you guys.
Also, there were a couple in there that have been approved already. So those were the outside activities of staff, which we approved in December. So I apologize for that.
They came to us separately at that time, but yeah. So I motion to approve what was brought forward and to table the two until Beth can check into them more.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a motion by Cindy and a second by Esme to approve all the policies as presented, except for the two sections discussed at the policy meeting. Any board questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Before we go into executive session, Linda, can you send the email invite to Rick Erickson? Linda?
I already did that, Cindy, or Debbie, sorry. Debbie, I already did that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Randy, I don't know when we're gonna take up the equity committee recommendations. Right now it's 5th on the agenda for executive. So if we don't take Rick up first thing, you'll let him in at the point when he's up.
Right, Debbie will do that. She'll let both of us in when it's our time.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
I need a blanket.
I'm gonna go potty before we do.
We need a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Wisconsin statute 19.85. We have a number of hires, wage equity, and administrator search.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Larry, second by Glenn. Could we have a roll call, please?
Nicole Boyd,
Yes.
Debbie Knopf,
Yes.
Cindy Garrity,
Yes.
Glenn Carlson,
Yes.
Larry Derrigan,
Yes.
Esme Martinson,
Yes.
Magdalene Dale.
Yes.
Motion carries. See everybody in executive. And we will return to this link to make any announcements on action taken.
Great, do it.